So have you seen the latest information on these new sensors that people have where you can actually listen to the different plants? They actually play a musical genre, for lack of better words.
Yeah, those are really cool. They're also a little bit of a gimmick. I'm glad people do it though. What effectively they're doing is, I mean, you could hook any one of us up and do the same thing. Is they get some interesting, funny sounding like synth board, and they amplify the signal. And what effectively they're measuring is little changing currents or spikes in voltage from, let's say, the mushroom or the plant. And yeah, they're kind of random, so it makes this interesting, like, experience that you could meditate with or whatever. But you could do that with an apple. You could do that with you. You could do that with a lot of things that are alive, because if they, I mean, everything's brimming with electromagnetic energy, biologic energy. But a lot of the sound effect of it comes from how they modify those electrical signals. First, they amplify them, and then they put on specific, like the way they transform how it sounds and everything. But yeah, it's a good example of like how things are alive electrically. Like the electric body, the electric mind. That's something that we've known for a long time now, but we're just starting to kind of incorporate that into our collective understanding.
Yeah, it was traditionally woo-woo to talk about it, but I mean, some of the most recent discoveries showing that each cell has a millivolt rating, and if you could actually connect all of those cells, technically you could throw lasers out of your fingers. Now you'd kill yourself doing it, because you'd kill you'd release all the energy from the biology, therefore rendering it useless. But it's still kind of a cool concept to think of the human body as a capacitor, for lack of better words.
Yeah, every cell. There's what's known as the cell potential, and you have healthy cells if they have a big potential. So it's a negative potential. It's like negative, let's say 40 to negative 80 microvolts across the cell membrane. And so the cells that divide the least, they differentiate the least, they will have a higher like negative cell potential, greater. And then the cells that are dividing, what happens is that cell potential drops close to zero, negative 10, maybe negative 20, or even 0 microvolts. And that triggers mitosis. What happens with cancer is that it stays near 0. So instead of dropping to 0, the cell divides and that restores back to like negative 40, negative 60, negative 80 microvolts. Is that stays near 0, and it starts this crazy replication process. And then it starts to create multiple nucleuses in the cell, so it becomes multinucleated. So it's not just one nucleus with the DNA inside in every cell. It's like 3, let's say, and they're deformed and everything. They have all these problems. That's all bioelectric signals that they're reading. DNA, in many ways, is like reading this bioelectric gradient that exists, and that's what's informing how the DNA expresses itself in the proteins it produces. And the most important cells differentiate the least. For example, our nerve cells have the highest negative cell potential at like negative 80 microvolts, and they don't differentiate. They're not splitting, and so they're very, very stable. But when you get those cell potentials to drop and then stay dropped, that's when you have all these problems. And our environment influences us in regards to that. For example, pulsed electromagnetic fields, like the Schumann resonances at 7.8 hertz and 14 hertz and 20 hertz and 25, 33, even like the power grid at 50 hertz in Europe or 60 hertz in North America, these pulsed electromagnetic fields are alternating current. So they're going back and forth like this. It's not a direct current. It's not a static magnetic field. It's a magnetic field that's being pulsed out. That can change cell potentials. I'm doing research on that right now for a new video on PEMF. And so they've shown to be able to help with cell proliferation, cell differentiation, gene expression. It's also been shown to induce cell apoptosis, so cellular death, pre-programmed death. It's been able to show or induce maybe even like it fuel the growth of cancer. It depends on a variety of factors, but these energetic fields that surround us, whether they're man-made and artificial or natural, like the Schumann resonances or telluric currents, or atmospheric gradients like the thunderstorm, for example, the Santa Ana winds, they influence us deeply at our biologic level. And yeah, that's one thing I'm doing my best to educate others on, because once I learned it, I felt like it's my mission to connect these things and then help people learn this and to improve their health and wellness and everything.
So I assume you know about the Rife machine, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about effectively. That's one they call them Rife machines or PEMF. I have one right behind me.
Yep. Pauline was very much into her PMF machine as she got weaker and succumbed to cancer. But anyway, so yeah, that's where I like to try to get people to connect to the understanding of what you're saying, and then here's a tool that did it, even though it was taken away from us and demonized. That information had been out there since what, the 20s, I think, it was 30s when he created that machine.
It's been around for a while.
Yeah, and so now finally we have a better example or way to verbalize what was actually happening during that process. And I think he was at like 100 megahertz, maybe it was 300 megahertz. One of those two created apoptosis. Literally just watch the cells blow up.
Yeah, different frequencies have different effects. The strength of the applied field also matters, and it also changes depending on the cell type. So the cells that have the largest influence with pulsed electromagnetic fields from like these Rife devices, or let's say like just the power grid or the Schumann resonances, it depends on the frequency and the amplitude, and the cells that have the biggest effect are undifferentiated cells, so stem cells, and cells that they're maybe not stem cells, but they're still kind of figuring out what they want to be. They haven't decided yet. And one of the things that's been most well established with pulsed electromagnetic fields is that they are really good with helping with bone fractures and tendon repair and connective tissue problems and bone healing. And you have kind of a scale. Connective tissues are piezoelectric. They're semiconductors. So they can conduct current, they can not conduct current. It depends on a variety of factors like the mechanical pressure put on them, the status of the water that's hydrating them. But bones contain within them in the marrow all the undifferentiated cells. So that's why the strongest effects for pulse electromagnetic fields, which they've known about since really the 60s or so, is that it helps with bone regrowth and fracture healing. There's so many case studies of people that had bones that weren't fusing. They were just not healing. And then they applied the pulse electromagnetic field, and within like a week, all of a sudden repair started. Because it was able to just give enough juice to some of those cells to get the party started and get the whole healing process underway.